Oxford Planning Commission meeting. Welcome, everybody. My name is Joseph Murphy. We have some new commissioners up here today, so do bear with us if we have some hiccups in scheduling and announcing and going through this. So we'll start out, we'll do the approval of the agenda. We have administrative approval, public hearing number 2749. We have some consent agenda items as well. I guess we'll take some comments from the public. Is there anyone out there that would like to move one of the items from the consent or administrative agenda over to public hearing? Excuse me, just consent. So anything on the consent agenda that anyone needs moved to the public hearing? Anybody in the general public? Anybody online? Anybody here on the commission? Need to move? Are you clear on what we're asking? Yes. Okay. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. It carries. The agenda is approved. Next item, the approval of the minutes from the June 14th. Oh, excuse me. That's going to be the July, what's our date? Oh, July 12th, excuse me. Approval of the minutes from the July 12th, 2021 meeting. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor say aye. 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 The minutes from the July 12th, 2021 meeting are approved. Staff report, Mr. Ben.
Well, as you noted, we have a few new commissioners tonight, and we have 4. And I want to thank y'all for, for your commitment to this community, to make it better, and appreciate your time. Just as I've already discussed with you individually, if you have any questions, of staff, don't hesitate to ask us. And then if you have any questions tonight, feel free to let us know as we go through this. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment.
Thank you, Ben. That brings us to our public hearings today. We have public hearing first, case number 2757, and I believe that is going to be Mr. Ben.
Joseph, actually, we've got a consent agenda. We need to approve the consent.
Okay. Excuse me. Let's stand corrected. Okay, back to the consent agenda. So we need to go item by item and approve each one?
We can do it as a lump approval, but we have 3 items that are on there. Yep, we have 3 items that are on here. Case 2767, it's a special exception for building materials for Will Belk. We have case 2768, which is a special exception for the front yard build-to line maximum for Oxford Commons LLC. And then we have case 2769, which is a care center request for the Children's Academy of Oxford. Those are the 3 items that we have on the consent agenda. We have not heard any comments or received any formal comments for these particular cases.
Okay. Is there any comments now? Does anybody have any comments now that they need to make concerning the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? It is seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, the consent agenda is approved. Now, can we let the fun begin at the public hearings? Thank you.
Thank you. So this is a special exception. This is case 2757. It's a special exception for an unenclosed rooftop for the Julep restaurant, which is over on East Jackson Avenue. And I know we've discussed this, but you are aware that this was an item that was previously discussed by this commission, and it was tabled to allow time for the Courthouse Square Preservation Commission to weigh in on that. So the property is located on the north side of East Jackson Avenue. It's the site of the, it's actually between the former St. Leo's and the Renaissance Bank. It's zoned Historic Urban Center. It's located in the Courthouse Square Preservation Commission, and the site, it measures about 0.06 acres. As I mentioned, they're requesting a special exception for an unenclosed rooftop. The existing building does have a second floor addition, and it's on the rear portion of the building. And in front of that, all the HVAC and mechanical equipment are located there. Initial conversations with the applicant and the architect, Edie Conkerton, indicated that they would like to use the rooftop on that front half for the purposes of rooftop dining. But to make that possible, several modifications were proposed to the building, including a staircase, a purlin, several things. This was in an early iteration of the design. And through subsequent conversations with the applicant and the architect of the design, we've been able to kind of get to the one that is being requested tonight. In your report, you will see the list of criteria that are required, A through G, and the staff report does address each of these. I think the one that is of particular importance here is E. It was a subject of some considerable discussion at our last meeting, and so E suggests that the commercial use of unenclosed rooftops shall not be permitted on structures that are 50 years or older. And the plans, and I'm sure the applicant, and it looks like Mr. Lewis is also here, structural engineer for the applicant. The plans do indicate that a new structure will be constructed inside of this building and the facades that will brace the adjacent walls to support them. And it will also facilitate the construction of a new floor for the existing second floor addition, but then also for the new rooftop on that second floor. And so the applicant contends that the unenclosed rooftop will be on a new structure rather than one that is 50 years or older. I did provide a history of all the discussion that was previously had at the Planning Commission meeting. This did go before the Courthouse Square Preservation Commission last week on August the 2nd, and there was some discussion. I think the commission was actually pleased with ultimately where the design has ended from their previous conversations. So they did approve the COA for the unenclosed rooftop. The provisions in this ordinance to not allow the commercial use of an unenclosed rooftop was to ensure not only that the uses on those buildings will be safe for patrons, but also to preserve the historic structures in the historic courthouse square. The applicant's proposal is certainly creative, but it does provide the necessary structural support to create a safe, unenclosed rooftop area for patrons to enjoy, while also providing structural support that reinforces the historic building. Staff recommends approval of the requested special exception with the condition that's noted in the report, which is standard for special exceptions, that if no permits are pulled within 18 months, then the special exception expires. I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have. I will also have Edie Conkerton come up and speak on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Bibb.
You bet.
Any questions from the audience or from those online? Feel free to go ahead and voice those. I personally don't have any questions, but if anybody else does, please go ahead and speak up. Or from the commission.
I've got a question. What's going to be, based on these submissions, what's going to be along the front of the second story? I see it's 3 foot 6 inches high.
Yes.
Is that it?
No. The 3 foot 6 inches is what we have to obtain for building code so that people don't fall off. It's actually the front of the building from the roof. If this is the roof and this is the front of the building, it's actually about right here.
Okay.
So y'all have actually sort of lowered the ceiling.
We've lowered the floor.
Accommodate all of this so that it doesn't show.
Yeah, this building, when it was constructed, it looks To me, just looking at it, it was constructed over time and added onto at different times for different reasons. So the second floor goes, you know, has multiple levels. And we're taking it down to one level that will allow what we just said, and that helps with our staircase too. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So looking at it from the street elevation, on the left and right-hand side, on the second floor, is that just a concrete block wall on each side?
That's, those are parapets that from the adjacent building, you talking about in the front?
Yes, yes.
In the front, those are parapets from the adjacent building that are waterproofed. And we're gonna end up doing, you know, a good deal of that too, because we're gonna have to tie in between those two walls just to keep water from going down there. So it's not gonna look probably much different than what you see now.
Harry might be referring to the materials that are going up right here.
Oh, are you referring to the second floor in the back?
Well, the second floor, where the human is standing now on the front right-hand side, the wall immediately to the right, which would I guess be the,
No, you were talking, yeah. Those walls going back from the rooftop are there now, and they are concrete block.
Oh.
They're not our wall.
I got you.
So this is a straight on elevation, but if you're standing down at street level, looking up, that is pushed so far back, you don't
Yes,
see it, is my understanding. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. And I want to,
That's there now,
right, yeah,
so,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah, let me add one thing about that. As part of the hearing for last week's case at the Courthouse Square Preservation Commission, they did provide a flag test, so they actually had a structure that showed the height of the staircase that was at the front, and it's minimally visible from the street. In fact, I think we had to walk down maybe St. Leo's. I mean, we had to get a side profile to even be able to see the proposed staircase on the side.
yeah, if you walk down to the new St. Leo's, in there, where it comes in, if you walk down there, you can see a little bit of the staircase. But you can't see it head-on or from the square. We had I sent y'all some pictures walking the street, but I didn't bring those either, so.
What's the time frame for having it accomplished if it's accepted and once you get started?
If y'all say okay today, I'm calling Chris Carter tomorrow and we're starting building permit process.
And so,
And it'll be, and I would love to say we will get our steel and get everything going. We are at the mercy of everybody right now, but we're gonna go on this as fast as we can. And I mean, John can tell you it's pretty straightforward with the steel columns and the joists.
So Edie, will the back part that's existing there now, will y'all come in and build the steel up under that as well, or will that be the existing structure that's already there?
No, we're gonna have to take a lot of that out too, put the new floor in, and then we're gonna see what's happening above that when we can pull everything out and see it. I think we would like to just, instead of having, you know, more steel columns and beams going up to support those larger walls, come in with metal studs. Because if you see on the section views, the new floor that's back beyond, that's inside that second story, is actually probably a couple feet, maybe a foot or so higher than what we're coming in with. Because from the roof right now slopes down, comes up to that back part of the building, and then you step down into the second floor.
Due to the age of the building, has it been investigated at all how building a new structure on the inside will affect what's already there?
As much as we can without tearing everything apart. We know that the floor of the existing is dirt that's under it. So we are gonna dig out carefully in spots. We know that the front facade, we're gonna have to dig down and give it, thanks to the city's new walks, we know that we're gonna dig down and give it new foundation. So, yes. And all of that will be covered, I mean, we're gonna have to work closely with the city building officials through the whole process.
Very good. Is there any other comments or questions?
Well, I still have a question or maybe a concern about the back part that's gonna be enclosed. That's gonna be a service area, correct?
No, that's gonna be dining and, oh, yeah,
Okay. And
but it's enclosed now.
sure, I understand, I've been up there, it was an
Oh, okay.
apartment for forever. But also, I guess my concern is that the structure that you build will support the weight of all those people, that if that's gonna be, inside dining, that the floor is gonna go all the way through the back of the building so that it's gonna support the weight of those additional people and equipment.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why we have Mr. Don Lewis as our structural engineer.
That's all I got.
Okay. I was gonna say, I was able to benefit from an earlier meeting about this, but it's gonna be just so you're clear, there's gonna be like a metal skeleton that they're gonna build, right?
Exactly.
And that's gonna be what's all the brunt of the weight.
Some of it's gonna be exposed.
Okay. Commission, any other questions or comments?
I'd like to say that I appreciate all the work that y'all and staff, owners, Mr. Lewis, have done because I know for a hot minute there was talk of tearing the building down, and I'm sure there are very few buildings around our square that you couldn't say, are unstable and need to be torn down. And so I really I think we're gonna have to get creative with ways that we save them. And
Yes.
I really appreciate, and the Historic Preservation Commission too worked very hard on it, I know, and I appreciate all of that from all of you.
Thanks. Well, we were actually, I'll tell you, Judy, we were able to, once all the stuff from the city walk, the debris was pulled out, there's that metal structure that you see in front of Julep, there's a whole base plate under that just has to be shored up, and then we can do the new foundation work. So we were actually very lucky on this one.
Thank you. We'll entertain a motion, if anybody has a motion at this time.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. The approval, or we do have an approval for case number 2757. And that's going to bring us to our next public hearing. Yes, ma'am. Case number 2770. And Mr. Gray Parker.
Yes, sir. This is a variance from the accessory structures section of the Land Development Code. The subject property is located on a narrow lot in the South Lamar Historic District on the west side of South 8th Street. The applicant recently purchased this property, and in the southwest corner of the lot is the 3.5-foot tall block wall along the south and west property lines that encases a sunken wooden deck. The wall and deck were constructed by previous homeowners, and the applicant is proposing to raise the deck 3.5 feet to be at the same grade with an existing carport floor. The Land Development Code defines a deck as an accessory structure and states that no accessory structures shall be erected within 5 feet of another building or property line. We spoke with the city's building official about this proposal and its encroachment on the property line, and he said that the proposed deck would not cause any building code violations because the proposal will not become an enclosed structure in this particular instance. For example, like a screen porch or an addition to the home. At the July Historic Preservation Commission meeting, the commissioners approved the design and materials of the deck. There are no health and safety violations related to the proposed deck, and it will not be visible from any public street. Staff recommends approval with the one condition stated in your report.
Thank you. If anyone has a comment at this time, let's start with the commission side. We'll do the commission questions first. Any comments or questions from the commission up here? Hearing none. Any comments from the general public or questions for Mr. Gray? Or is the applicant here?
He's here. Yep.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions online? Hearing none. All right, we'll entertain a motion at this time if someone has one.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. The motion is approved. Mr. Britton Boatwright, case number 2770, approved. That brings us to case number 2771. Mr. Ben, how's that one?
And this is a special exception for a gated entry for property 2901 South Lamar Boulevard. The applicant is proposing a gated entry for a planned second phase of the Hooper Hill development. The new phase will require a site plan to be submitted for the city to the city for review and approval, and the proposed gated entry requires approval by special exception. The application states that because of safety and security of the residents are of the utmost importance, that a gated entry is proposed to secure the complex. No specific reasons are stated as to why security is a concern at this location along South Lamar. The application does note several residential developments that have had a gate entry approved, spanning many years of development in Oxford, most recent being the Archive and the nearby Oxford Farms development. Since the adoption of the current special exception requirement in 2017, 4 have been approved, 4 gated entries have been approved. It is worth mentioning that most of the developments are purpose-built student housing developments, Campus Creek, The Connection, The Domain, etc. And they have a critical mass of residents who are young people who are also frequently not in Oxford, summer vacation, spring break, Christmas break, etc. In recent years, several developments have been engaged in long-term contracts with sororities and fraternities whose members all occupy all or most of the units in the development. So that's something, a different trend that we've seen recently. And I believe, I think even like Hooper Hollow, one of the nearby developments that the applicant owns, is in that, and this may also be the case. Inside the staff report, I have provided the requirements for a special exception. I'll walk through them real quick. Gates should be constructed of decorative ornamental metal, and in this instance, they will be doing that, but we do recommend a condition of approval that they provide us with the drawings prior to the issuance of a permit if this is approved. The style and the color of gates and other enclosures should be coordinated with nearby structures. Again, they say that, but we want to confirm that just to make sure. Gates should operate so that they do not obstruct sidewalks, streets, bike paths, parking spaces, and similar facilities. This proposal does comply with that. Swing gates are encouraged. Gate hinges may be located on one or both sides of the driveway. This proposal does comply with that. It's not a sliding gate. There's not an unobstructed vertical, there's not an obstruction for the vertical clearance in this instance. Gates shall be designed to allow vehicles to turn around in the driveway without backing into the street. And so they've provided an exhibit that does illustrate that, but we've been working with them on the final design of what that would look like should this be approved. And it does result in a condition of approval. They have indicated adequate stacking room at the entrance. The gate will have 24-hour access, will provide 24-hour access to maintenance service providers as well. The gate will have emergency hardware for the fire department, police, public works, and other utility departments to be able to access it. It's required to have one pedestrian access gate and at each gated entrance driveway. The application does state that they will comply with this, but there's no fence that would connect to this gate, so a pedestrian would be able to walk around that. Anti-directional devices at entrances are prohibited, and this does comply with that. Protective covenants shall be established. Basically for the maintenance and the long-term responsibility of the maintenance associated with the gate, and the application does indicate that they will have to provide those protected covenants, and that would be something that would be provided before the issuance of a permit for the construction. Entrances must meet the full width requirements, and the design will comply with that as well. Gated developments should not be approved for developments that provide necessary connectivity for access and safety reasons. No gated development with private roads can be considered for acceptance as public streets. This provision, it's not applicable because this is a private development. It has internal circulation, and we don't see that this would be connected at some point in the near future. Gated entries have been the subject of many conversations and requests to the Commission over the years. The guiding principles of Vision 2037 Comprehensive Plan and the Code are expressions of the community's vision and values that establish 6 fundamental design and planning principles to guide Oxford's future growth. Principle 1 does recognize Oxford's historic ways of town planning and encourages those traditions as a framework for future growth. Historically, multifamily developments in Oxford did not have gates restricting access to the developments and are contrary to principle number 1 of the guiding principles. However, in recent years, the Commission has approved gated entries for some of these developments as indicated in the list that was provided. And the current land development code did incorporate many of the design and safety elements as part of the review of these requests, which has improved the appearance and functionality of gated developments. And principle number 4 encourages a densely connected network of streets and roads that serve all users of the transportation network, and gates can limit and even disrupt this connectivity. But the roads for this development are privately owned, and it's not likely that they will provide any additional connectivity. Most importantly, the requirements for gates do contemplate the impacts that gates present to the transportation system by providing a way for people to safely turn around should they make a wrong turn. Or for providing adequate stacking space for vehicles entering the development. And then in this instance, the applicant's engineer has been working with staff on the design of that entry into the development, which may be resolved prior to the meeting, but it at this point has not yet. So again, that would be a condition of approval. As indicated in the report. In this specific instance, staff believes that the concern about vehicle access to the development is legitimate, since it has primarily been a residence for students who do not reside in these dwelling units year-round. Staff therefore recommends approval of this special exception with the finding and conditions stated in the report. And Mr. Sid Bryan is here. On behalf of Bryan Development, LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Ben. At this time, we will open it up for questions or comments. Again, we'll start with the commission. If there's any questions or comments.
Ben, did you say that, thought I heard you say, so there's this one gate, but it connects to the previous phase that's not gated? And you don't have to have pedestrian access because you can just walk around the edge of the fence? I guess I don't understand the purpose of having a gate.
Might be a better question for the applicant to answer.
Okay.
Hey Ben, this is Paul Coscinina with Precision Engineering, representing the applicant. And I see Sid there standing up. I apologize for not being available to be there in person, but I think Ben has outlined our request pretty clearly, and I think Sid is showing Ben an exhibit that we've prepared to show what really this gate would look like from the street. But yes, to answer that question, this is interconnected with the existing development, and the intent is to convert the existing entrance, which is an entrance and an exit. We would convert that to an exit only, and the new entrance into the development that's on the south side is part of what Ben is about to show here. That would be the only way into the development. And actually, again, to answer the question, the property would be not only gated at the entrance, but also they're going to submit a permit to construct a fence around the entire perimeter of the front of the development, and therefore the pedestrian access would be required.
So, Paul, you're saying that you're gonna go ahead and put a pedestrian access, even though it's not in this proposal right now?
That's right. It would, yeah, and it would be, well, again, we're working with engineering staff to kind of iron out the details of the exact geometry of the final entrance design, but it would be likely to the left of the main gated entrance, kind of where the car is sitting there now.
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. So you just stated that your intention for the future is to gate the entire property. It won't just be the vehicle gate.
Yeah, Paul, let me address that if you don't mind.
Sure.
I do think he said the entire perimeter. Certainly we plan to do the front. Some of the front is fenced now of the existing project, and I think certainly we alluded to that in the application, the pedestrian gate. I'm not sure about the fence, but we are committed to doing a fence across the front and the pedestrian gate on the front. It's currently fenced across, I guess, the southern side, and it's county property along the back, and it's currently fenced. And there's a church property on the north side that, you know, we don't have any plans to fence, but we could. We typically haven't had any issues from there.
And to Ben's point earlier, these internal streets are all private. There really is no opportunity or possibility of connecting this to any other adjacent streets in the area. So this definitely would not interrupt any sort of public interconnectivity to any of the adjacent roadways.
Have y'all, I mean, traffic study is not the right word, but you have a queue space for 4 cars sitting there. It's such a busy street. Is that, I mean, I know it's not a massive complex, but 4 cars is enough to not cause traffic issues?
Right. Historically, based on other projects that we've seen around town that are gated and the number of units that are in this project, we feel like 4 cars is plenty sufficient.
And I guess I'm new to the board. This is my first day, but is the issue security? I just was actually unaware that all those other complexes were gated. Is that the issue?
Yeah, there's no question. You know, and I don't think any of us like to admit it, but we got issues with safety and security in Oxford. This is a specific clientele. It's upper end. You know, they're riding in expensive cars given to them by their parents, and they have a bad tendency not to lock doors on their units or their cars. And I got to tell you, from a management standpoint, I doubt anybody manages quite as tight and hard as we do. We're on them. And we're having issues on South Lamar. And they're serious issues. We hadn't had the most serious, but it's just a matter of time. And unfortunately, I think these projects have been identified, and they're coming from out of town. They're driving from the Jackson, Mississippi area into these projects. And we're catching them every time because we've got 100 cameras out there now, but we've gone to automatic locking doors. So when the door shuts, it locks. And believe me, for the most part, these tenants don't really like that, but this last incident we had, which was only about 3 weeks ago, it worked. Because we got him on camera just checking door to door to door to door to door. Fortunately, we had the automatic locking doors on at that point. We got cameras up, and we got full-time security at night. We don't know what else to do other than try gates. At least it'll make them slow down enough. We make sure we get their license plate numbers. We have a better idea who it is. And again, we got a pretty good track record of supporting the police department and catching them. But, you know, it takes a lot of time, a lot of resources that frankly are probably unnecessary. Right now, this project is Hooper Hill now. So it's one entrance, and it's kind of hidden. It's not real wide. It's not real noticeable. And it's had residential properties out in front of it. Well, this plan removes 3 residential properties that were buffering or screening it from the street. So, which is a good thing, I think, but all of a sudden this project's gonna be a lot more visible than it has been actually in the past. So, all the more reason, in my opinion, we need to try to do everything we can to take one more step to secure them.
So the new entry gate will be on the new addition,
That's correct.
one-way traffic going through, coming out, gated on the other end.
Coming out, they'll exit the existing entrance.
This will just about double your capacity down there, isn't it? Or pretty close?
I don't think it's quite that much. And you gotta keep in mind, we're taking about 14 bedrooms out.
Right. Pretty much same architecture as what you're
Oh,
doing.
yeah, it's gonna be. Look, that's another thing too. These are cottages, and they're very popular. But you know, you get to drive right up to the front door. If you're a tenant, that's a good thing. If you're a corporate, it's not a good thing. They're driving, anybody can drive right up to the front door. They're all flats.
Yeah.
So the entry, that entry is just, it's narrow, it's just with a turnaround.
Yeah, and you can see it on that plan. Well, you've moved it now, but yeah, they're coming in, and that exit you see there is only for queuing. If somebody pulls in there and, you know, they've turned in the wrong driveway and they need to get out, they just roll out the other side.
I have a question, not specifically to this one, but gates in general, for staff, I guess. And you had some wording in there that I think if the city, something about fire trucks, saying if it's not working well for that after 2 things, they have to pull it out or something like that. But what if it's determined later that it really is messing up traffic on South Lamar right there? Does the city have any way to go back and say, we were wrong, this can't stay here? We got people sitting in traffic because people are piddling around at the gate, or the gate's broken, or people can't remember their code and they're looking on their phone and, you know, whatever.
I think it's certainly something that you could entertain as part of your approval should you do this. That
but as it's drawn, it's set up to hold up to 4 cars.
And that's, you know, that's if nobody pulls up a little bit further and goes in the out, if you would. You know, we talked about safety and security, but, and the emphasis, particularly when it's directed to me, is about the tenants. But that's really what this code's about, is public safety too.
Well, we will definitely hear it if it causes traffic problems on South Lamar. I don't think it will. I think 4 cars is enough, but who knows in 5 years? I mean, you know.
Yeah, I will too, I'm sure. I'll hear it, is what I meant to say. I'll hear it too. Yeah, listen, we're not trying to create a problem. We're trying to address one.
Understood. Is there any other comments or questions from the commission or general public or online in regards to case number 2771? Hearing none, and I would remind, there is these staff conditions here, and so if we do have a motion and you do want to include these, we would say motion to accept subject to staff conditions. And I think you were asking about a staff condition a while ago. Anyway, with that being said, does anyone have a motion?
I'd move that we recommend the approval of the special exception with the findings and conditions that y'all added.
And does that include being able to revisit the traffic if there's a traffic issue? I think we need to put that in as an exception or an issue or whatever we need to do.
That's not part of my motion. I'll just use the motion as the, to recommend the approval with the following conditions that y'all brought up.
Okay, so right now on the table, we have a motion for approval subject to the staff conditions as listed on our document here. One member, Mr. Spraggins, asked about adding the traffic, if we have a traffic issue that needs to be revisited. That would have to be a separate motion. So we'll have to let this first one go through, either approve or disapprove of it. If you want to add that, you would vote against it. We would disapprove it, and then redo it again and add that in there. I think that's the simplest way to do it.
Yeah, do you have a motion on the floor, and then if you have a second?
Okay, so just to make sure we're all clear, if you want to add the traffic, that's not what's on the table right now. Okay, so for that motion, is there a second? For Mr. Harry's, Alexander's motion. Mr. Lawyer, is there a certain time period we need to sit and wait, or is there a certain time we need to let a motion sit?
I don't see anybody jumping up and down.
Okay.
I call that a dead.
Okay, okay. So the motion did not carry. I'll entertain any other motions at this time.
I'd like to make a motion with all the other exceptions and adding an exception that the city can go back and revisit if there's traffic issues, and we can revisit that. And I don't know exactly how it works, but, so the city.
So that applicant would come before the planning commission if there's, incidents that obstruct traffic on South Lamar. The applicant, is that within a 12-month period?
I would say.
Complaints to the city, haven't done that before.
Complaints
If
to
there's
the
a
city.
specific complaint, however many specific complaints to the city about traffic at that location due to that gate within X time.
Within 12 months from reconciliation.
Can't turn your mic on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So what city attorney suggested is that if there are documented complaints to the city within a 12-month or within a particular term, 12-month period, that the applicant would then appear back before the Planning Commission to address those issues. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and I don't want to try to, I think it's going to work. I just want to have that loophole.
Yeah.
So if there is a huge issue,
Okay, so for the record, we now have a motion subject to the listed staff conditions, in addition to a provision in the approval that if there are official complaints to the city of Oxford within 12 months, that it will come back before the City Planning Commission for reevaluation on the traffic impacts. If we need to mediate those or change those, we will have another hearing to determine the answer. Is that clear? Everybody clear on that? Does that satisfy everything? Okay. Mr. Spraggins, does that motion accurately state your motion? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. It is approved. Case number 2771 is approved. Next, we have 2772. Mr. Ben has that one.
Okay. So we're talking about the same development, and this is the second phase. They are requesting a special exception for dwellings detached in this district and for dwellings attached in this district, and this pertains to the quantity of bedrooms. They have 4 bedrooms that are proposed in this particular development. The applicant is proposing a second phase of the Hooper Hill development. It requires a special exception because 4-bedroom detached and attached units are proposed. The property is located on the east side of South Lamar. The existing Hooper Hill development is on approximately, it's just under 3 acres, and the proposal indicates a second phase that will be on about 1.8 acres. The existing development consists of 18 4-bedroom attached and detached units that are all 1 story. Applicant is proposing to construct a second phase of this development that would consist of 9 new buildings that contain a total of 15 new units. 6 of the 9 buildings will be 2-story buildings, and 9 of the units will be 3-bedroom, and the remaining 6 will be 4-bedroom units. The proposal states that 3 existing homes will be demolished in order to facilitate this development. The proposal does require 55 parking spaces. 42 of those are required parking spaces and 13 guest parking spaces. The applicant is proposing a total of 64, which is well within the 25% maximum that is allowed. Staff recommends approval of the requested special exception with the following findings and condition stated in this report, and one of those is that a site plan amendment will be required for this development. So they'll have to submit this to the city, and this stuff will come back before this commission for final approval of the actual development in and of itself.
Thank you, Mr. Ben. All right. If there are any comments from the commission or questions at this time? Of course, you can always chime in if you think of something. We'll open it up to the public and those online. If anybody has any comments or questions for case number 2772. All right. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion if anyone has one. We have a motion to approve. Is that a motion to approve or a motion to approve subject to staff conditions?
Motion to approve subject to staff conditions.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. The motion carries. Case number 2772 is approved subject to staff conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day, sir. That brings us to case number 2773, Mr. Robert Baxter, I believe.
Okay, so this is a variance from the retaining walls provision. So the subject property is located northeast of the intersection of Sisk Avenue and Commonwealth Boulevard. The applicant is proposing to build the second phase of the Commons development, which will be 2 restaurants with outdoor space, including a stage. This development is also the case of 2768, which was a special exception for the front built-to line, which was in the consent agenda, and the next case, which is site plan approval. This request is to exceed the maximum allowed retaining wall height in a front yard. The maximum allowed is 4 feet, and the applicant is proposing walls that would be a maximum of 5.9 feet for a variance of 1.9 feet. The applicant states that the topography of the lot is unique. This location was previously a stormwater detention pond, and the applicant is proposing to take advantage of the bowl shape of the land to create an amphitheater effect around the proposed stage. The lower grade should also help to keep the sound from the stage on site. Staff is supportive of this variance request. The provision to limit retaining walls in front yards is partially for aesthetics to prevent large massing of solid concrete right next to your right-of-way. This proposal is also somewhat inverse of the typical request in this regard, as the retaining wall will be going down into the earth as opposed to coming up into the sight lines. So the sight lines into the site are then preserved, and there is no mass of concrete that will be visible from the right-of-way. Additionally, having the site a few feet lower than the surrounding grade has good sound reduction potential. Staff recommends approval of the requested variance with the one condition that approval is for the plan as submitted.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from the commission or comments?
Also, the applicant's engineer is here.
Excellent. The applicant is here. Okay.
How visible is this wall going to be from Sisk?
Generally, it shouldn't be too visible, but I'll let the applicant's engineer speak to that, or the architect, I guess.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the commission, to the new commissioners. We're glad to have y'all. The retaining walls are dropping into the site. So like Robert said and the staff report said, it's kind of the inverse of what I think that the intent of this ordinance is, to stop the walls facing out of the site. So they really are not going to be visible, I think, at all from the city streets, or looking over them from the street and down into the site.
So if the walls drop down, is the stage also below the street level?
It is, yeah. The stage floor will be about 10 feet below the street level.
Okay.
And the stage roof is going to be probably 8 feet or so above the street level. So it's going to kind of have a sculptural appearance looking back towards the corner. It was a tricky site, it was 25 to 30 feet down by the time you got to the bottom of that pond. And so, we brought in a lot of soil, but, outside of bringing in truly mountains of soil. And the owners desire to create this kind of park-like experience, an amphitheater type of setting. Really, every time we studied it, we kept coming back to that stage really wants to be set into the hill like that.
I've got a quick question here, and I'm referencing the picture from case 2774. We're not there yet, but it's a better picture. So as I'm looking from the corner on the street, looking at the back of the stage, I can see a railing for a fence running along there. Is there going to be a fence at the top of this retaining wall? And if so, is that what I'm looking at there?
There is, yeah, and that's, really fall protection from the sidewalk, so it'll be a 42-inch picket fence that's really required for fall protection, because that, we're gonna have sidewalk, planting strip, and then those walls are gonna start dropping into the site. So, but the intention is that it's gonna be 42 inches, the minimum, and visible through.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so on that, and this is jumping the gun, but you we're sort of looking down the road. I'm assuming that alcohol will be sold at this, people will be wandering around, I don't know, is it ABC? Somebody says 4 feet high fence, Ben, you said? So you're saying 42 inches, is that, I mean, I don't know, if sitting on top of a retaining wall, maybe that's a different story, I don't know, but can you kind of explain how this will be fenced, is what we're asking?
Sure, yeah, and I think it's fair to just consider both cases together, honestly, because it's all kind of inextricably linked. So yeah, the fall protection on top of those retaining walls is on top. It's the retaining walls themselves are really going to be a barrier where they exist. As we move around the site, it will have to be secured. We did meet with, early on in the conceptual, can we do this phase? We met with OPD and planning staff here and sort of hashed all that out. And OPD did say this is really between the purveyors of these businesses and ABC to determine what works as barriers. And ABC is, they say 48 inches, but they also sort of consider other things like retaining walls and other kinds of barriers that you could come up, including people right at doors or gates saying you can't come in, you can't leave with that drink. So we will get there. We have operators on board that are going to be running this entire 2-acre site all together. And they will definitely get there with ABC figuring out how it's going to be controlled, but they will have to meet those requirements. That's between them and ABC to figure that out. I think if anything has to be over 48 inches, we would have to come in. Otherwise, I think we're allowed the 48-inch picket fence through, which could, I think, just be a staff level. It will double, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like where it's up on top of those retaining walls, we'll kind of do the 42-inch minimum because the retaining, I'm confident ABC is going to say those are plenty enough barrier. Where it's not, as the retaining walls diminish, we'll probably have to go to 48 inches for those to meet those requirements.
Okay. Are there any comments? Again, we are on case 2773, and this is for the retaining wall portion of this project. Is there any questions or comments, further questions or comments from the commission or from the general public or those online? Please speak up if you have a question or comment. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion at this time. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the plan?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. It is approved. Case number 2773 is approved. Thank you. I'll say don't go far. 2774. Go ahead.
Okay, so same property, this is the site plan approval request. As to use requirements for this site, restaurants are special uses in the suburban center district. Additional standards for that use include requirements to follow the sound ordinance and the times allowed for outdoor service if the restaurant sells alcohol. As for parking, the restaurant's uses require 1 parking space per 100 square feet of patron area and additional 1 parking space per 100 square feet of tavern area. For this development, there are 5,800 square feet of indoor patron area and 834 square feet of tavern area for a total of 68 spaces. Additionally, there's another 20,000 odd square feet of programmed outdoor area that staff believes, as is tied to and programmed with the restaurants, should be counted as restaurant area for the purpose of the parking. This would necessitate another 204 parking spaces for a total of 272 spaces. This development is the second phase of the Commons development. The first phase approved in September 2020, case number 2660, also included additional parking that could be used for future phases. This first phase required 93 spaces for its retail and office space uses. Staff believes that because the uses in the first phase will generally not have peak hours at the same time as the entertainment block uses, that these 93 spaces could be used to accommodate a portion of the parking needs for the entertainment block. In total, there are 218 spaces between the two phases of the commons, and this leaves a deficit of 54 spaces. And the applicant has proposed that a shared parking agreement with the church directly to the east to cover the remaining spaces, and there is a condition that we have on record for that shared parking agreement. As to coverage and setback, this meets the coverage standards and the setbacks. There was a special exception that was just granted to exceed the 58-foot maximum front build-to line on both the west and the south sides. Other review elements include landscape and tree mitigation. Landscaping plan includes plans for foundation plantings, parking lot trees, and frontage trees, and the landscaping plan meets the requirements of the LDC. This is an area that was considered an area previously developed and therefore is not subject to the 2015 tree mitigation variance for the Oxford Commons PUD, and so no tree mitigation is required on this site. To access, the site will take access off both Sisk and Commonwealth. Pedestrian access has been provided along both Sisk and Commonwealth with internal sidewalks indicated. The buildings will be clad with a combination of fiber cement siding, stucco, and painted brick for the materials. Signage is a separate approval process, and they understand that. The last sticking point is a trash compactor. So the trash compactor on the plan is currently located in the northwest corner of the site and is under 45 feet from Commonwealth. The enclosure will be screened from Commonwealth by landscaping, but will probably require additional landscaping on the south and east sides from what is shown here. Planning staff is generally not supportive of a dumpster enclosure this close to and so visible from the road. Staff is supportive in this instance as the applicant has proposed to integrate the enclosure into the concession and bathroom structure, and we have a condition that the applicant work with staff to make sure that this is pleasing to the eye as best a dumpster can be. Engineering has provided comments related to water and sewer and utility, traffic access, sidewalks, and stormwater management, and all other departments have reviewed the site plan and have recommended approval. Staff recommends approval of the requested site plan with the following conditions that are listed below. Additionally, this afternoon we did receive a letter from Corey Alger with comments about this case, and that has been sent out to staff and will be part of the official record.
You did state that the shared parking agreement was on file.
It will need to be on file as a condition of approval. Yes, that will be. That should be condition number. Sorry, that should be a condition in there. I apologize.
That was a condition of approval from the previous case.
I didn't. No. So that will need to be added as a condition. I apologize for that.
And is that the parking agreement, is that in perpetuity, or does it have an end? I mean, or, can the church decide, hey, you know what, we're sick of y'all, and then we're stuck with a development that's short 90 parking places? I just don't understand how that works.
I believe that it should be in perpetuity.
I don't know that we need to require a parking agreement in perpetuity, but I think practically how it comes up, Kirk, is if we find out that they no longer have access to 50 parking spaces that they did at the time of approval, it's going to be incumbent on them to either find those spaces or come seek a variance for parking requirements or clean it up some other way.
Okay.
At this time, are we aware of any backup plan in case the proposed agreement does not go through?
So this is really phase 1A and 1B of the entire 16-acre development. The future phases is two what we call liner buildings, which will be 3-story mixed-use buildings just to the north of the east-west run of parking. And then behind those, we have 2 double-loaded runs of parking before we get to the back portion, which is to be determined, most likely some sort of residential. So in that phase 2 and 3 is where we're gonna sort of take stock of the parking situation. If this agreement were to go away, which I don't think it would, the church is really excited about being a part of this development, but if it were to, we definitely have opportunity in future phases. And quite frankly, if the ownership group and the developer find that they have parking problems, we're gonna work some more parking in. What we're trying to get away from is a sea of parking. I don't think Oxford wants seas of parking. We want to encourage people to find alternate modes on busy nights like Uber, rather than to flood our streets with parking. So, but yes, short answer is there are opportunities for us to increase parking as we develop this site, should ownership, staff, planning commission feel like we need to.
Are there any further comments? Again, this is case number 2774, site approval for the entertainment block.
And it's gotta meet some noise ordinances, the stages and all that, as far as reading the letter from the email here, that talking about the sound is going towards the residences, and I guess.
Yeah, and
Is that, is there some type of ordinance of decibel level, I assume?
that's right. So that sound ordinance that was voted in 4 or 5, 6 months ago, we will absolutely be held to that. And the measuring is taken at the property lines, and this is actually a pretty long ways away from those residences. 150, 200 feet at least, maybe 250. I really don't know. But it's a pretty good ways, and in addition, it's going to be buffeted by buildings, so it's kind of set down, in a bowl. We've got 2 restaurant buildings that are really cloistering it in, 2 2-story buildings. Behind those, eventually there's going to be 2 3-story buildings, and then it's another 100 feet from that. So we feel that we have met with a sound consultant briefly on this, just to kind of gut check, or we feel like our strategy at least is reasonable and sane. If not, he wouldn't, if we needed to engage him for further study, and we all kind of felt like this is a reasonable strategy at this point. But short answer is, yeah, we're held to that sound ordinance, absolutely. The 70 decibels measured where it describes it needs to be measured, and if it becomes a problem, then the purveyors of these businesses definitely have to deal with that.
And how many people will the urban area hold, I guess?
Well, if it's let's say they get some big national act in there, I mean, I think that if we run the numbers on it at the absolute shoulder to shoulder, you could probably fit 700 people in that outdoor space, and still have room to kind of move around and meet the restrooms and concessions and whatnot. But I think that that's a once a year, twice a year kind of scenario. They really, the concept of this is really that it's gonna be a semi-public space, feel like a park. Yes, they do own it and operate it, but they kind of feel like they want people to be able to come and go. You don't have to buy a thing to come and hang out, except on ticketed events. So,
Is it one operator for the restaurant and the bar, I guess?
it is for the entire 2 acres. So Blackburn Group will, is owning it. They're the developer, they're the ownership. They have a group that's gonna operate the entire 2 acres and control it, which is an advantage. We have one point of contact when there are issues. And I asked them if I could speak to who it is, and they said it'd be fine. So it's this group, they are in Memphis. They run Laughlin Yard, Rail Garden, and Bounty on Broad is their 3 places in Memphis. Laughlin Yard and Rail Garden are very similar to this, outdoor spaces, playgrounds, park-like experience that also has restaurants and tavern.
That's fine.
Other facilities to handle 700 people? Restrooms and all that stuff, or what have you?
Yeah, so that I saw that was brought up by the comments from the public. This is a little different from the Harrison Square situation where that was 100% outdoor. There were no restaurants associated with this at all, and you had to provide facilities for that. In this case, the restaurants are open to whoever's in that space as well. We do have 2 men's and women's with 2 toilets each that are wholly dedicated to the outdoor, and then inside we're going to have a lot of restrooms. So we have the 2 restaurants that are also going to be there to serve this space. So yeah, we feel like it is. We met with Chris Carter on this issue, who is going to be the one enforcing the requirements for facilities, and he felt like we were fine on it.
And so the case before this had to do with safety. I'm guessing that there are fences in addition to the variance that we approved shortly ago. The access and entry, and you're talking several hundred people with a couple of hundred parking places. You've got a good case there for a whole lot of folks, a whole lot of cars, a whole lot going on.
You're concerned about
And so I'm guessing, the one we had just a second ago, Mr. Bryant was, he was looking at its safety, and I'm guessing, or I'm thinking that, you're having a 48-inch wall, you have the opportunity for 700 people being there, you're asking for additional parking, 250 spots or thereabouts, I think it was. But you could have up to 700 people. I'm just thinking about the safety ramifications of how you get those people in, how you get them out, where they're parking, are they walking up and down Sisk? I know I'm not familiar with the folks from Memphis, but apparently they must do a good job because they've got 3 places up there that they're, manning now. But I would just think that would be something that'd be very concerning to the city, to make sure that those things are taken care of. And I know if all the departments have bought in on this, I would think that all of that had been addressed.
Yeah, so, I need to make clear that would be that's definitely an outlier sort of event. Otherwise this is, y'all are familiar with Lamar Yard. It's similar to that. It's that sort of event would probably be a special permit type of event. They're probably going to be asking for, traffic guards to deal with traffic on something like that. They themselves want to obviously make sure that it's safe as well for people in coming and going. But, yeah, definitely otherwise it's not going to be that. That's a big event. That's a once or twice a year, and talking to the operators and what the kinds of acts they plan on getting and kind of entertainment. And I want to say, they're also targeting, weddings, corporate events, Greek life events. They're trying to sort of do a lot more than just have bands up there. But yeah, I think it's a fair concern. But I think it would be incumbent on them, law enforcement, staff, to make sure that all of that's operating smoothly, for sure. But as it is now, I think Rihanna she's met with us. We've talked about ingress and egress a lot to get that center entrance set where it was, and I think everybody's feeling okay about it. And the enclosures around, I'll just touch on that real quick. One thing with a space like this you don't want it to feel like it's, a fence. We have to control it, but you don't want it to feel like it's a prison, keeping people out or keeping people in. And so we're going to try and work with ABC, the concepts of defensible design, where you design through architecture and landscape architecture barriers that you don't even realize they're barriers. And so when we get up to that corner plaza, we're going to try and use planters with fences sort of hidden in the planters and planted around them so you don't realize that it's there, with strategic breaks where it can be manned by staff to make sure people are not coming and going with drinks. Hedgerows along that east side as you're running up to that building number 2, along with some fences tucked in those hedgerows. So we don't want it to feel like it's this barricaded enclosure, but we understand it has to be controlled. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Are there any other comments from the commission, from the public, or those online? And if not, I'll entertain a motion. Again, this is case number 2774, and there are actually 5 staff conditions. There's 4 listed, with the 5th being the church agreement. The agreement with the church, and what was discussed here was that there would be an agreement that would be put in place for a not in perpetuity, I think was the normal, or the phrase it's not normally used. It's usually a set period of time, but there will be an agreement for X number of spaces that will have to be on record to be approved. Correct? Yes.
Prior to the issuance of a CO.
Prior to the issuance of the CO. Okay. So is that clear for the commission, what we're contemplating? Okay. So anybody with a motion that would entertain that at this time?
So, I would move that we approve with the 4 conditions listed, and the 5th condition being that a parking agreement with the church is provided and approved by the planning department and made a part of the record prior to a certificate of occupancy being issued.
Second.
We have a second and a motion. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is approved. Case number 2774 is approved. Thank you. That brings us to our final public hearing, case number 2765, and that will be Mr. Gray.
Yes, sir. This is a site plan approval for the Spargo, which is also in Oxford Commons. The subject property is located on 2.7 acres at the corner of Ed Perry and Commonwealth Boulevard, and the project is being referred to as the Spargo at Oxford Commons, which will include 2 single-story commercial buildings, each a little over 12,000 square feet. They will be located on 2 separate lots in the Oxford Commons PUD. The applicant received a special exception to extend the maximum front yard build-to line at the June 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Other plan review highlights: the buildings will be identical with brick facade on all 4 sides. Each of the units have large front windows along the entry sides as well, and a parapet has been designed for each of the buildings. Currently, the applicant's architect has stated that there are no current designs for rooftop mounted equipment. Staff has included a condition regarding stating that language in tenant leases make aware of the requirements that any rooftop mounted equipment cannot exceed the height of the parapet walls. There is a second condition that's in the report for the complete streets plan, but as of this afternoon, the applicant has provided a complete streets plan. I've included it at the very end of the case file, and it meets staff believes it's sufficient and has approved that, so we can eliminate condition number 2. Related to landscaping and tree requirements, they meet all the landscape requirements and no tree mitigation is required for the site. I would like to highlight that the retaining walls along the southeast portion of the site will be screened with evergreen hollies per code. The lighting plan has been approved by staff. There shouldn't be any light pollution going out into any other adjacent lots. They meet the impervious coverage standards for the district. Related to parking, the site requires 124 spaces and 128 have been provided. This proposal will allow for 2 rows of parking in the front yard consistent with other strip commercial centers in the Oxford Commons PUD, including the Alexis to the south and also the Terrace. There will be 2 curb cuts off of Ed Perry Boulevard to get into the site, and signage will be a separate approval for the site plan. Related to engineering comments, under the water and sewer utilities section, construction plans for the Spargo must be updated to reflect the revised location of the sewer line further from the buildings and to provide a detail on the extension of the sewer line through the privately owned and maintained retaining wall. Another highlight from engineering, the engineering report is regarding the stormwater management. The proposed stormwater management facility consists of an underground detention basin located on the east side of the property under the rear drive and the parking areas. Engineering staff has not approved this stormwater management plan as of yet. At the time the case report was being written, staff was reviewing the second submittal. However, they don't anticipate any major changes and should be just fixing some minor issues with that plan. Staff recommends approval of the Spargo with the now five conditions, with the removal of the condition number 2 regarding the complete streets plan. And Mr. Forzick, the property owner, is on the Teams meeting, and then the applicant's engineering staff is here as well.
Thank you. At this time, we would entertain questions or comments from the commission.
Great. The issue about the parapet wall, is the height of it sufficient to, I guess, not protect, but obscure, normal air conditioners,
Yeah, it's a
up
good
there?
question. They state that there's a minimum height of 4.5 feet, and it also gets taller on the ends. It may be a question for, is Paul on the line as well? I don't know the standard height of an HVAC unit, but we wanted to have a condition just in case, since we weren't seeing it on any of the plans. They would have to.
Yeah, Greg, I'm here. This is Paul Cushinina. So until the tenants are actually selected or until they have tenants, they're the ones that are responsible for the HVAC equipment. And I think they're being made aware that the equipment they install has to be at or below the height of the parapet wall. And as you said, Lance Forzick, the owner's rep and current landowner and contractor, he's going to be building the structure. He's on the meeting as well.
Right, and that's correct. We acknowledge the parapet height requirement, and we'll, in all likelihood, be handling the tenant improvements as well. So we'll make sure that we comply.
And Kirk, it could be, and Ben mentioned this to me as well, it could be a hood vent or something else, but at least, whatever they propose, we can be assured that it'll be screened.
This time, we'd also open it up to the general public for comment or those online. Any questions or comments? Again, this is case number 2765, final site approval for the Spargo. Hearing none at this time, would entertain a motion for approval. There are some staff conditions. There are 5 now instead of 6. Number 2 was stricken as proposed. Any motion out there? We'll take it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
5 staff conditions.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, subject to the 5 staff conditions, and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. 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 It is approved. Again, case number 2765, approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes our meeting, unless there is some other item that I'm not aware of. I was going to say, yeah, I'm ready for the motion. I didn't know if I was forgetting something. So if anybody has a motion for us to adjourn, I would.
Motion, we adjourn.
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.